Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name is, of course, Seesaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Final Fantasy XIV in 2019. How's it going, everyone? It is actually Saturday today. I'm doing this recording a little bit later. I usually do it earlier in the week. I do hope to get it up this weekend, either today if I'm lucky or Sunday, but if that doesn't happen, I do apologize for shifting my schedule slightly. It was just a really busy week, but yeah, here we are back in the game, and this video is actually kind of going to be a part two to the video we did last week on the Palace of the Dead. In that past video, and I'll link it somewhere, I'm sure, if you haven't seen it, I tried out the Palace of the Dead for the first time. It was a lot of fun, but what I ended up doing is just doing it as a solo player, and I really just did levels 1 to 10, or floors 1 to 10, to check it out and really get my first impressions, which was really good because I did learn a lot about it. I got to see how the systems work, how the items work, how the chests work, and it was a really good introductory video. This one is going to change for several reasons. Number one, as you've probably already noticed watching the screen, I'm playing on my Bard for this one. And this kind of goes to another point. I had a few comments of people asking me if I'd just given up on the Bard now. And no, I definitely enjoy the Bard as well. My ultimate goal is to get both the Bard and I think the Summoner is what I'm going to play to the same-ish level, so I can kind of alternate between the two of them and kind of switch whenever I get tired of one of them for a bit. So that's the hope. But I did want to try this out on the Bard, as I do have more experience with the Bard, and I just felt more comfortable with it. So I did end up queuing for a group version of the Palace of the Dead, and I got in really quickly. And this is another comment from the past video that I really hadn't thought about, but this is essentially a dungeon where there is no tanks and there is no healers. This is the dream. A lot of MMOs, you have to wait forever if you are a DPS trying to get into an instance, because you have to either have a tank, you have to either have a healer, and there's usually only 3 DPS that go along with them. In Final Fantasy XIV, it's 2 DPS that go along with them, so the queues could even be longer, you'd think. But in this case, it's 4 DPS, so it's actually a really quick queue. And apparently the sweet spot for leveling is when you get to kind of the 40 to 50, 50 to 60 range for floors. So it should even get quicker as you go up through them, and that is really what I experienced. I had to wait maybe 3 minutes for the 1 to 10 queue, and then it was pretty much instantaneous when I did 20 to 30, 30 to 40. So it was a really quick and easy thing to get into. What you also notice is that your experience that you receive for doing the floors, for doing the 10 floors, increases each sort of segment you go up. So it does become more beneficial for leveling the more and higher level you do. Obviously, like I say, there's a sweet spot where it probably takes a lower amount of time but yields a pretty high amount of experience, and people would probably do very rushed groups of that. I'm still not sure what the maximum floor is. I don't know if anyone mentioned that in the comments below in the last video, but if you do know what the maximum floor is, I'm very curious. Is this something that goes to like floor 100, or is it legitimately endless content that goes on forever? Because this also does remind me of Fractals of the Mist in Guild Wars 2, which essentially were supposed to be a set of dungeons that you could scale the difficulty and go on forever and ever and ever. Now, in that game, the highest level Fractal is level 100. And since they've started adding new fractals past that, they've just kind of replaced lower level ones to switch up the variety, which is great. But my ultimate hope was that we'd keep increasing the level, and like it would go to level, I don't know, like fractal level 150, fractal level 200. I actually wanted it to be this endless treadmill that before you hit a cap of the actual level of fractal, you would hit a point where you simply couldn't do it because you needed to get some better items before you could progress. And I think that would be a really cool thing in this situation, that maybe you had to continue leveling up in a set of floors below if you weren't able to get to the next floor. So you could essentially have it so it goes on forever, and it's really just gaining power that's limiting you in terms of going forward. But yeah, I don't actually know. I'm sure I could look it up, but if you do know what the maximum floor is, I'd be very interested in knowing. Now, the other thing that switched up with playing with 4 people is that we were able to clear the floors really quickly, which was great. As long as you make sure that you stuck together and that someone didn't kind of die off in the corner, it was a really big thing. Though I did learn what you do when someone dies is that there is a sort of a totem of return that will bring the player back, and you do need to have all 4 of your party members alive to move to the next floor. So there was a bit more coordination that had to go on. When it's just yourself, you don't really have to think about those things. But it was really cool to see that there are more aspects in terms of planning how you should progress. Now, we did often find ourselves in a group with someone that had, at least a heal on key. And I think that helped us a lot, because it could get pretty challenging if you didn't have anyone who could heal up the group. Because certainly when you have people that run over traps and stuff like that and almost die from the trap, there are some pretty critical situations that need to be rectified pretty quickly with some healing. But I don't know, how it would be if you had all DPS, like full DPS of no heals on bar. I guess you could probably kill the creatures more quickly, and that might make it easier or harder. I'm not sure. But it was very cool that way. I'm also, I don't think there's a tank and a healer, but maybe they do choose someone who is more tankish and more healer-ish. I'm not sure if there's kind of a thought to how they choose the actual specs. I don't know if you'd end up with 4 bards in the same group or something like that, or if there are some limitations on how groups are formed. It'd be interesting to know as well. Now, the other things that I noticed is, I actually went past level 10, so I saw that the layout and the atmosphere does change depending on the 10 level bracket, and that's extremely cool, and I think really adds to the flavor of the dungeon. You're actually wanting to see what the next 10 floors will look like, what the next 10 floors theme is. So I thought that was really cool as well. Further to that, I also got to actually level my character higher than the level I was when I went into the dungeon. And what I assumed would be an issue is that you just wouldn't get the skills for higher levels, and that you would kind of be a negative asset to your team. But as it turns out, they just award your higher level skills for your job while you're in there when you level. So all of a sudden, this place becomes a really cool place to see what your future job plays like. And that's extremely important in a game like Final Fantasy XIV, where everyone stresses to new players, the combat gets so much better at higher levels. Well, now there's a way you could grind and level at a higher level than you are, which is a really weird thing to think about, but it does help to alleviate that sort of initial roadblock of people being turned off by some of the combat. Additionally, it's a really cool way to check out some of the skills your class will eventually get, your job will get. For instance, after having discovered this on my bard, I'm very curious to see how my summoner or my arcanist at the moment will change and actually grow in skills. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to turn out. Ultimately, I think I did enjoy doing it as a group, and as usual, the comment section was right about that. I think any instance content really does shine when there is a group of people, and I was a little bit concerned about joining a group at first, that I was going to hold them back, but when I did join a group, it's such an easy thing to join. This is even easier than a regular dungeon, because all you have to do is go around and kill things. As long as you stick with your group and just shoot whatever you guys are attacking, you shouldn't have any issues. So as a new player, I would heavily suggest that you check this out. I think this is almost a better stepping stone than going into a dungeon or something like that, because it really does allow the group to go at its own pace. You're not going to hit a wall necessarily. So I had a lot of fun with it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully I get this video out in a timely manner. We will talk about a different subject next video. I don't love doing the same subject back to back, but I thought that just based on the comments you guys had suggested in the past video, I did need to take another look at this, the Palace of the Dead. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.